and welcome to the Power of Meditation. This is the 7th year. I'm Kelly Blazer, founder of the Power Meditation and Dharma Bridge, and I'm so excited to get to talk with you today, Dr. Amit. So let me tell people a little tiny bit about you. Dr. Amit, who's coming to us from Kenya, is voted one of the top 43 naturopathic doctors worldwide. And Dr. Amit, you help thousands of people around the world heal from trauma, anxiety, depression, and chronic disease by combining naturopathic medicine, psychotherapy, homeopathy, family constellations therapy, and Gestalt, other forms I'm fascinated to talk to you about to heal the root causes of disease and emotional illness. So your website is dramit.com, and let's just dive in. I'm really focusing in the summit on the intersection between Dharma and therapy and how different therapeutic techniques and interventions have overlap with Dharma teachings and practices, mindfulness and meditation, and so on. So do you want to carry us in? Where do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to cover, first of all, homeopathy for anxiety, depression, and trauma. We're going to look at family constellations therapy to heal ancestral trauma and how we're entangled with the wounds of our mother, father, abortions, miscarriages, murders in our ancestral line. And then I'll go into a bit of how basically the adrenal stress response happens due to trauma and how that causes burnout, anxiety, depression, what we can do about it. And then, of course, we'll talk about group therapy and group processes because I run retreats in Italy and in Kenya where you can go on safari and do some yoga and trauma healing. And Kelly and I will be doing some powerful retreats together in the future, touch wood.
Vision. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Really excited to get to work together. Okay, yeah. So take us into, well, I'm really interested in family constellations work and have heard a lot of, I've heard you talking about family constellations work and how a sense of belonging can be recovered in that work. And I'd love to just learn more about it from you.
Okay. So I'm just tuning into the information here. So Family Constellations was developed by Bert Hellinger, a therapist, a priest, and he spent a lot of time in South Africa. And he studied with the Zulu people and discovered that these tribes have what we call orders of love. They respect ways of being. And these orders of love are really the premise of family constellations therapy. And what does this all mean? Basically, in family systems or in families, there's things that need to be respected. The first thing is including everyone, right? And what does that mean? So often in modern families, we don't talk about maybe the aborted child, the miscarried child, the murdered uncle or the murderer, or people who suffered something or are outcast from the family.
Mm-hmm.
They're not mentioned, they're not acknowledged, they're not celebrated. So the children, us, the descendants, we're not aware of them per se, right? And this lack of presence or mentioning of these missing people leaves a gap or a void in the family system because your family system is whole, it's all inclusive. It includes every single soul that stepped in and out of your system, including miscarried and aborted children, whether it's your own or your siblings who were miscarried or aborted. And when they're not spoken about, you pick up on this missing information and you kind of represent it, or your body or your mind tries to represent this missing information. And how does that happen? You basically start getting symptoms, right? You might feel unloved or unacknowledged in your life, right? And that could be a symbol of somebody who's been excluded. Or you might start having OCD symptoms, and I've seen bipolar and schizophrenia appear due to like a secret in the family.
Mm.
Okay. If your mom had an abortion or miscarriage, and you think you're the first child, but really you're the second child, then when you think you're the first child, basically you're living the role of a position that's not authentically your own position. It belongs to this missing sibling. So you will automatically feel a sense of overwhelm, possibly because you're living the lives of your own position and the position of another child.
Mm.
You might feel anxiety, depression. And I often see this unexplained depression people have is either they're guilty because they survived and the other sibling didn't. It's an unconscious guilt. Or the mother and father are really depressed and sad about and grieving about the loss of this child that hasn't been given a space, a name, a position in the family. And you as the child, and this is going to the second order of love, you take on the grief of your parents. And I'm going to talk about how that works. And so you do therapy, you go through trauma release, but this grief doesn't go away, this sadness, unexplained sadness. And it really is, it's a grief that doesn't belong to you. Yeah. And I bet 90% of the people listening here are carrying some sort of emotion that's not theirs. And I invite the audience to literally say, I let go of what does not belong to me right now, and I'm willing to be blessed and respected by my parents, by my ancestors. If I leave the emotions of my ancestors and parents where these emotions belong, and I honor my own feelings, or I carry what is mine to bring forth in this world. And you can try that sentence and just, it's a very subtle shift, but you start disentangling from what is not yours.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And maintain a sense of belonging.
Yeah, and still I belong. So in a way, we carry what is not ours as a way of belonging to the family system. My mom, my dad are grieving. Let me carry their grief in order to belong to this family that's grieving. And you can say, Mom, may I belong in this family even if I don't grieve like you did? May I acknowledge, so I'm going to give you a healing sentence to use if there's abortion or miscarriage in the family. You can say, dear sibling, I've missed you. Dear mom and dad, I'm the second child. I want to look at this first child as your first child. Please give me permission to do this so that I can feel my better position to both you parents, both you and dad. And you'll feel the shift. You'll feel the relief in your nervous system.
Yeah,
it's very powerful.
Very powerful. Yeah. And this can, I imagine there are folks out there that are already feeling a little bit of spaciousness from that. And this kind of work can be done individually with a therapist or in a group setting as well.
Yeah, individually we do it, in a group setting at the retreats that we do in Italy and in Kenya, and also they're going to be in the US. We do it in a group setting where we'll have people, you as a participant in the retreat will have a chance to either have work done on you to release ancestral trauma, and you can also participate as a representative, what we call a representative. So you will basically take on the role of somebody's mother, father, and intuitively feel, what's happened. Or I, as the therapist, will notice your behavior and say, okay, what are you sensing right now? Are you sensing grief? Are you looking down at the floor? In constellations, whenever many people are looking down at the floor, it means somebody or something has passed away and we need to look at that. Yeah, very powerful acknowledgement to do. And maybe grieve a mom who did not get a proper burial. And give her a proper goodbye. So there's relief in the whole family system. Right? Yeah. So this is the power of constellation, because really it's healing the root cause. So we go for anxiety, depression therapy, whatever, and we're doing maybe CBT or some other controlling therapies. But the root cause is an ancestral entanglement. And if you don't heal this entanglement, you're stuck in therapy for a long time and you never feel really satisfied. Because you're carrying the grief or pain or trauma of a system, not your own.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's very interesting, right? There's so much overlap with Dharma teachings right there, like just in the focus on ancestral work and in a sense, like the need to experience ourselves as part of this oneness in order to individuate and experience ourselves as an individual. It's quite paradoxical.
I was just going to say paradoxical. And then I want to discuss the other orders of love. So the other one is hierarchy. So basically in hierarchy, in family constellations therapy, we basically acknowledge all those who came before us, whether by birth or by interaction with our parents. What does that mean? So they need to be acknowledged and they need to be given the correct position. So if my father had a wife or a lover before my mother, it's important for me to acknowledge her place in my father's life.
So
and
order
of
of the,
the order of appearance. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's why also in hierarchy, the missing sibling, the aborted or miscarried child, needs to be acknowledged before me, and I go back to my second position. I will feel so much more relaxed when I'm in my right
I see.
position, and I feel truly seen because I'm in my correct position.
I see. So
And
it's
then,
really more like temporal kind of sequential hierarchy rather than any kind of like power structure sort of hierarchy.
absolutely, it's sequential.
Okay.
It's sequential.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
many children reject maybe the lovers or the previous partners of their parents, yeah, either out of loyalty to the mother or father who hates the ex-partner, or just thinking I have to be so loyal and protect my mom's feelings, I have to reject what my father had. But in that rejection, we also reject part of our parents, and we are made up of our parents. So if we reject our parent, if you really listen to that rejection as you're doing it to one of your parents, you'll find that you're actually choking a part of yourself
Mm-hmm.
because you come from that field of energy, that biology. Yeah. So in constellation work, we can say, "Dear Dad, I see what you had before Mom, and I give her a space in my heart, or I give her a place in my life,
Mm.
or I see the love you lost, or dear ex-partner, thank you for leaving. Because you left, I could be born." Yeah, because then Dad met Mom and I could be born.
Yeah.
If her death or parting didn't happen, then Dad would never be with Mom and I would never be born. So these are very powerful acknowledgments that add a certain life force to our biology and our energy field. And what I've seen from that, honestly, is that diseases start healing, anxiety and depression start peeling away, immune systems start improving, and we just have more zest and clarity for our own life. And that comes back to Dharma, right? Just how to go forward and fulfill your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we don't fulfill our purpose because we're caught or stuck or entangled with our parents' issues or mistakes, or not even mistakes, just events. We're stuck with entanglements that don't belong to us. So we're loyal to the suffering of Mom
Mm-hmm.
or Dad. Let's say Mom was abused by Dad, right? We take Mom's side. Okay. We reject Father,
Mm.
right? In rescuing Mom, we now shift hierarchy. We become the parent to Mom. Mom becomes the child in our mind, or we become bigger. And that disrupts the order of hierarchy, and that disrupts our authentic, how do I say it, authentic position according to Mom. Mom is meant to be the bigger one,
Mm-hmm.
but we take on the rescuing child to the Mom out of love and loyalty to protect her, which is natural. At the same time, it disrupts our position, and therefore, when we go into relationships, one is we're not fully available to a relationship often because we're kind of protecting somebody else. We're not available. Or number two, we get used to rescuing people or protecting people or fixing their problems. So we associate that kind of attachment with the idea of love and bonding. So if my partner has a problem, I will feel more useful and more bonded to them, and I have a purpose and a role in their life. That's my association of love and belonging. And when they're feeling happy, I start feeling insecure. Yeah. So now I go into codependent relationships because of Mom's suffering. So if I can say, forgive me, Mom, I've been protecting you, and I see you're okay now, or I see a better way to honor you is to trust that you are big enough for this fate, for your life. Or you can say the opposite. Dear Mom, I will carry this with you at all costs, even if it costs me my life, even if it costs me my relationships and my happiness. And just by saying those sentences, you get an awareness of the cost to your life.
Got it. Yeah.
And you get a clarity of the unnecessity of what you're doing because it doesn't really help Mom or Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When we give them their power back, they get stronger, and we feel freer as children, and we're more able to fulfill then our role as partner, our role as in our workplace, our role in our dharma, in our life calling, in many ways.
That's an interesting little twist there. It reminds me a little bit of, what's called a paradoxical intervention. If you can't go straight for the forgiveness and the gratitude, kind of reassert the way that you're bound and afflicted, and then just notice how it actually feels in your system when you acknowledge the centrality of like the grudge that you're choosing to hold forever or what have you. And then that can loosen it and allow it to dissolve, it seems like.
I love the way you describe that. Exactly. Yeah. When you name it,
yeah,
and you don't resist it, you
yeah,
see what you're doing, you kind of create choice in the
yeah,
experience.
yeah. Because otherwise it's just kind of like floating around at the level of a kind of unconscious patterning. And yeah,
Yes.
that's very cool. So I don't know that much about family constellations therapy. I mean, I studied it a little bit in grad school, but barely. But it does
Mhm.
sound, it sounds a lot like, well, it sounds like it's got some roots in Gestalt, or I don't know if you want to talk about
Yeah, I mean, it uses a phenomenological approach. I never know how to say that word, which is also very Gestalt-like, where you're observing, you're sensing the emotion, and you come up with an intervention, a healing sentence.
yeah.
And so what I found is people who do Gestalt therapy and then do constellation work very effectively,
Mm-hmm.
because we're very, I guess, in tune with energetic influences. Yeah, we call it sensory perception in Gestalt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other amazing practitioners in family constellations who don't do Gestalt. They use NLP or something else.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's different ways of doing it. I like the Gestalt approach, because again, it's like you're witnessing, like what we just did in terms of witnessing the resistance, right? Or witnessing, like, I will carry this at all costs, even if it costs me my happiness. That is similar to what we do in Gestalt, and don't resist, but actually exaggerate what you're doing. So you get an awareness of how you're doing it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that brings you to a place of freedom. You get free that way.
Mm.
And so very powerful techniques to combine.
Yeah, it's really so cool. In some ways I feel like when we do this kind of work, we sort of get comfortable with the idea that we're living inside a representation of reality, and that we can transform that representation of reality through these kind of new kind of symbolic um, gestures, in a sense. So we draw up this idea of the other, like the part of, the parent's past lover or what have you, or the child that was deceased, as you mentioned. And it's a symbol in the mind that we're pulling up, right? And then we can transform the relationship with that symbol and create a whole shift in the whole energetic field that we're walking through the world in, which is just, does that
Yeah.
sound?
Yeah, it's interesting you use the word symbol, that we pull it out of the mind, and I'm questioning that, because I'm wondering, is it a symbol, or are we actually tapping into like
A field.
the field and the, if you want to say, Akashic records, the soul of these people and our loyalty to the souls,
Yeah.
and by looking at them and acknowledging them, the entire field shifts. Like,
Yeah.
when I do a constellation with someone, they go home, their mother becomes different, because
Mm-hmm.
they feel something within themselves. Something also shifts in the mother.
Mm-hmm.
So I know for a fact that families transform even if an individual does the therapy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it doesn't. Yeah. So it's a debate. Is it an idea we're picking in our mind, or is it actually addressing, do souls exist?
Yeah.
Are we talking? And it's very powerful, because when we do it in a group work, or if I'm representing your mom or dad, when I tap into that information, I will actually act like your mother or father. I will know what happened. A representative will behave like that. So I think it's more than what the idea you hold. A representative gets that information as well, without even knowing the person or knowing anything about the story from you, the client.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, it's the most mind-blowing therapy I've ever introduced in the courses and the retreats that we're doing.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. We've done some similar kind of work in my group that's based in IFS. So we're mostly representing parts within ourselves in these kind of
Mm.
psychodramas. But yeah, it is. I don't think we'll resolve the debate about whether, whether we live in a symbolic, dreamlike represented
Yeah,
universe, or if there is actually a field that we're tapping into. I actually think it's kind of both and, it's like it,
yeah,
we have to see it as possibly a representation because of the fact that it can transform so completely. Like
yes,
we do this kind of work and it's almost like the wave collapses into the particle because of the witnessing, it's like a little Heidegger.
yes,
Um,
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
but what's fascinating and just so like opens up my heart and sense of possibility so much is just the profundity of how much shift can happen in these
Yeah.
spaces, regardless of what's happening or whether we'll ever understand it,
I
So
call it the power of love because a
yeah,
lot of these healing sentences that I encourage my clients to say are really sentences of love and acknowledgement.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's in healing sentences we really let go of resentment. We like, for example, if you're angry with someone and there's a forgiveness sentence called for, a sentence I'll often use is, I'm sorry this happened for you and I, or I'm sorry this happened between us,
uh-huh.
which is a very different way of saying I forgive you. Because I forgive you means you're still wrong,
Yeah,
okay? And I'm kind of like above you. But
uh-huh.
I'm sorry this happened between you and I see you as an equal, and I see the event separate or happening between you and you and I are individuated and pure souls. And this happened between you and I, but I now see your innate self, which is a
Yeah,
very powerful way of acknowledging someone
powerful
who is,
acknowledgement. Mhm.
yeah. And so healing sentences and family constellations are full of love. And yeah, that's why I call it the power of love.
Mhm. That's
In
beautiful.
fact, I'm creating an online course, in addition to the other courses which we'll talk about, on family constellations therapy. And there's going to be a lot of healing sentences in there. So I encourage people to look at those healing sentences and see which ones resonate for their situation. And I might call the course The Power of Love. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, it reminds me of satyagraha, that Gandhi's term satyagraha, the truth force.
Mm, yeah. Truth
So
set free.
yeah, so there's belonging and then this order or hierarchy. Those are two of the pillars of.
Yeah. And the third one is the balance of giving and taking.
Okay. Can you
So
talk
in
about.
relationships, there should be a balance of giving and taking. If one partner receives too much because the other one's giving too much out of just a need or habit, often the receiving partner will feel guilt or even resentment that they cannot return enough,
Mm,
and they can often sabotage the relationship.
mm,
And for children, when you're receiving from your parents, it's hard for us to give back to our parents the gift of life and everything they've given us since being children. So our duty as children is often to do well in society, to give back to the world, or to give back through creating more life, through creating new children and giving them, gifts to go forward.
mm,
So that's the balance from parents to children. But in relationships, it's a different dynamic of, equally giving back and forth.
mm.
Or if you give, then if your partner gives you, then you give a bit more, then the other partner gives a bit more. It really deepens the relationship, becomes super beautiful and powerful. So it's a good awareness for everyone that be okay to receive also, because your partner feels acknowledged and valued even when you receive from them, not only when you give to them.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if I give to you and you receive, my love is acknowledged by you, and that makes me feel precious as well.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting this kind of like infinity symbol coming through as I think about this, of
Yeah.
how giving and receiving
Yeah.
equal. Yeah.
So yeah, those are the three orders of love. And then I use family constellations, of course, for people who are going through trauma, anxiety, depression, or patterns in their life that are creating sabotage, repeating dysfunctional relationships. Often people in dysfunctional relationships, it's out of loyalty to one of their parents being harmed or
Mhm.
in an unhappy relationship. So I feel guilty if I'm happier than my mom or dad. And therefore, I automatically go into relationships that feel less satisfying or kind of match the family experience of love, or what I think was love, which could be abuse, which could be disappointment, which
Right.
could be silence or suffering.
Mm.
Yeah, because this is my association of bonding and connection.
Mm.
So I'll work with people to disentangle these things, and they become more free. Like I've seen even things like cancer reduce. I've seen like chronic pain, headaches, migraines, stomach ulcers, all that diminish with the use of family constellations, or even just healing words. Okay. And then I'll combine that with Gestalt, a bit of somatic experiencing, EMDR, and also homeopathy.
Yeah.
Homeopathy is extremely important for healing trauma. Yeah. It's vibrational medicine. It's made by diluting substances in nature multiple times. So we get the energetic imprint of the original substance. And why is that important? The energetic imprint is because emotions, trauma are vibrations, right? Are energetic vibrations. And pharmaceutical pills are chemical. They work at a chemical level and they block our emotional expression. They block our journey in a way. They're useful. Of course, they've saved people from suicide, self-harm, and they get people functional, which is great. And I always encourage, though, people at the same time to work on the root cause. The root cause is healing the trauma and healing the gut, the liver, the adrenals, which I hope we'll have time to talk about, how biology affects the mind and anxiety and depression in your life. But also homeopathy has the power, because it's vibrational in nature, even though it comes in a pill, the effects are vibrational. Homeopathy then can peel away layers and layers of trauma and really go to that deep root cause as well.
Mm.
And that's why I see anxiety and depression resolve much faster when we use homeopathy in conjunction with family constellations and psychotherapy. And that's what I teach you how to do in these courses and retreats.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting. I've used homeopathy a little bit, but it's been a long time since I've like really put that in the center. And Bach Flower Remedies, is that also?
Oh, yes. Like, gosh, okay. When we do these retreats together, you're going to love this exercise with Bach flowers. So I get people to learn the flowers, and I'll do a bit of role playing, right? Each person will role play a remedy that they pick. And strangely, when people pick, they actually pick the remedy that's meant for them.
Oh,
And then students will practice asking questions, like open-ended questions, to find out, okay, what are you, what's going on, to kind of figure out. I coach people on how to discover what flower a person needs. While you're asking the actor questions, I will sense the way you're asking those questions. You might be asking it with a very fearful tone. You might be intimidated by the client, or you might be trying to protect the client or rescue, or over worrying.
mm.
When I smell this nature the way you're being a practitioner, yeah, it gives me an idea of what's happened in your life as a person. Maybe mom was suffering and you really feel, I need to take care of this client because I've taken care of mom. Or, you weren't valued so much as a child or as an individual. So somebody standing in front of the room, getting attention from other people, becomes more powerful to you. And you have to be super careful not to make a fool of yourself. So you're losing power.
Mm.
Yeah. And I don't do it in a way that shames you. I actually get you to just feel, okay, you know what? Um, I need a bit of more value, or I'll get somebody to put their hand behind your back and feel the support of your ancestors, right? What does it feel like to have your father, your mother, your grandparents behind you, and then look at this client in front of you?
Mm.
The experience changes. You get a different experience of how to deal with a client.
Mm.
And that difference of experience creates an emotional response in you. And because you actually viscerally feel that experience, you actually experience the change, your nervous system starts to shift. Your brain starts rewiring itself, and your personality changes into a healthier vibration. So it's not just a momentary experience. It's a paradigm shift. It's a transformation of yourself. So in these small interventions, you become a stronger, more confident, changed person, practitioner, experiencer.
Mm.
And because it's an experience, it lives in your soul, in your memory, in your muscle memory.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I feel like there's so much possibility for like self-trust and kind of recovering sort of core, especially when you're working with others and trying to bring a healing force into others' lives. That's very
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
want to give people any I know, I've been on your email list for a little while, and you just offer like a real wealth of information about different remedies. And do you want to give people any kind of specifics? This is, I think your contribution to
Yeah.
this is kind of unique. We don't really have any other naturopaths on the summit. And so I'd love for you to just talk about that work a little bit.
Yeah. With pleasure. Okay. So the online course has all the remedies. Yeah. It covers most of the remedies, but let's go with a few. First of all, it's important to know with homeopathy, we're looking at the individual symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you're betrayed or traumatized, one person, you might become withdrawn, resentful, angry, and get headaches and feel like crying when you're alone. Another person, if they're betrayed and traumatized, yeah, they might feel anxious, have a lump in their throat, cry very easily, but kind of like need support or need attention. It's a very different response. So your unique response, that I look at it, that response matches the picture, the remedy picture of a specific homeopathic remedy. Typically, that what I've described as natrum muriaticum. Natrum muriaticum, which is homeopathic salt, basically is given to people who are withdrawn, resentful, have gone through a loss of a loved one, some form of betrayal, and they're very weepy, especially with music. And of course, there's other symptoms that we look at. And the other homeopathic remedy I love using for betrayals and breakups is Ignatia amara, a plant, a homeopathic version of it. And with that one, the person has a sense of lump in their throat. They're crying easily, they're weeping, and there's this anxiety going on, right? So both people have gone through similar experiences, but the response is different. And therefore, the homeopathic remedy chosen is different. And so in the course, I cover different homeopathic remedies for different emotions, different ranges of anxiety and depression, whether it's suicidal thoughts, often aurum metallicum homeopathic gold is used for that, where there's a sense of failure, guilt, low self-worth, or it might be Staphylos agria, where there's suppressed anger, a feeling that I have to be super polite and careful with people, right? Or timid. Nux vomica is excellent if you have a lot of irritability, anger, aggression, and constipation. So we covered those remedies. And I also there's a whole video on homeopathic remedies for specific kinds of trauma. So if you've gone through a breakup, there might be 5 different remedies to choose from. Yeah, we go through those. Or if you've been betrayed, or you've witnessed an accident, or there's been financial loss, or death of a loved one, or sexual abuse, physical abuse, being bullied, right? Being shamed. Each of those different traumas have different sets of remedies to choose from. So when you narrow down, your trauma and you see, okay, there's 5 remedies. Out of these 5, now which is the best match for me? Then you can do your research from those and say, this is the best fitting one. Mm-hmm. And when you use the best fitting remedy, the transformation goes much deeper, mm-hmm. right? And it just transforms all these blockages and entanglements and emotional dysfrequencies, I call them, disharmonies. And so suddenly you feel cleaner, you feel more resilient, more empowered, more confident, and you arrive as your authentic self. It's like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking living like that? Mm. Right? So it's so powerful that it does the work of therapy in a sec if we get the right remedy. Mm. I'm not saying replace therapy with homeopathy. I think integrate the two. Right? Just makes healing happen much faster.
Yeah.
Right? And then in the core, go ahead.
Oh, I was just, I mean, if you just grab whatever remedy, then you're not addressing the root cause. But if there's some therapeutic work and insight and inquiry happening and a sense of understanding, I think we express a certain willingness to ourselves at a really deep level and to the universe and to our family members that, we have this capacity to create shift and then to add a specific, whatever remedy is indicated to that is so much more powerful.
Yeah. And both ways. If somebody doesn't want therapy and you give them a remedy, the change happens, especially with children, right? Sometimes they're not I've treated some autistic kids as well with homeopathy, and the behavior shifts is beautiful. I've used homeopathy also to detox vaccines. Mm. whether it's the MMR, those early childhood vaccines that can contribute to autism, or even the COVID vaccine, right? I've seen significant improvements in health with homeopathy for vaccines as well, right? So it's not only the emotional level and used for psychotherapy issues, but really for overall health. And that's the beauty of homeopathy, because we look at the mental symptoms as well as the physical symptoms, as well as the history, like is there trauma, is there vaccine damage, is there antibiotic use, or is there birth control, too much of the birth control pill in the system? And we select remedies based on that. And then the healing happens layer by layer in a much more, I guess, linear or exponential way.
Wow, that's beautiful. And this
Yeah.
course that you're referring to, is this you have a free gift that you're offering, and I'm just wondering, the gift that you're offering is an ebook and video.
Ebook and free videos, which is an introduction to the main course. Yeah, so the free ebook introduces you basically to the power of healing the gut, the liver. There's some emotional healing exercises, right? And there's a lot of master classes in how to integrate family constellations and homeopathy and trauma healing for whether it's anxiety, depression, autoimmune disease. There's weight loss in there. There's SIBO. There's digestive issues, skin issues. There's a bunch of master classes, right? And so then there's the main course, right? Which I've put together years and years of experience of herbal remedies, supplements, homeopathic remedies specific for anxiety, depression, and trauma, remedies to heal the gut, homeopathic remedies and herbs and supplements for healing the liver, because the gut, the liver, and the adrenal system are your pillars of health. So there's also remedies how to heal the adrenal system. There's also very powerful emotional healing exercises, you can do with yourself or your therapist that will really peel away layers and layers of negative beliefs, of hidden traumas, and get you free again, get you back that emotional resilience. Because that's what we need, right, Kelly, is to heal the mind with these exercises and also support the body, the biology, right? Because when you heal the gut, the liver, and the adrenal glands, basically you reduce inflammation, you reduce toxins. And when the adrenal glands are super tired and burnt out, you basically go into adrenal fatigue. So combination of the toxins, and I explain this that's why the free videos are very important. I explain how these are all interconnected. When your biology is off, when you have leaky gut and inflammation and liver toxicity and stagnation, right, and adrenal fatigue, this creates a neurotransmitter imbalance leading to anxiety and depression. It creates weight gain, water retention, chronic inflammation, which leads to anxiety, depression, eczema, asthma, arthritis. So all these chronic diseases and mental health issues, right, can resolve much faster when you heal the gut, the liver, and support the adrenal system and release emotional trauma, and then heal systemic trauma. So that I call it the 5 pillars approach: gut, liver, adrenals, childhood or personal trauma, and systemic trauma.
Beautiful.
Now, these are the 5 pillars of health. Because these are the ones that contribute to chronic disease. When you do that, you need less supplements over time. Because remember, a lot of people are masking symptoms with natural medicine. They're taking chamomile tea to sleep rather than fixing their liver and hormones, right? Or they're taking too many adaptogens, too much ginseng or coffee to get going in the morning, where they might need to release the trauma so their adrenal glands and nervous system is not burning out from stress and trauma. And they could benefit from using things like ashwagandha and rhodiola, adaptogenic herbs, to support the adrenal system. So I cover all these remedies in the course, and that's the full course, and that's on special with this summit right now. And then there's retreats as well that we do, and courses as well. So if there's a group of students who want to learn my protocols in an experiential way, then I go and teach. I teach this in Italy. I'm going to be teaching in Canada and possibly in the Redwood Forest in the US very soon.
My neck of the woods. Very cool.
Yes.
Well, I love it. I love that. Liver, gut, adrenals, individual childhood trauma, and systemic trauma, which is systemic trauma is family trauma, the family constellation work, but also probably like societal kind of collective trauma. Yeah.
Societal trauma is huge.
So that really covers all the bases there. It's really beautiful. Well, I just want to remind people, we'll obviously share the link in the show notes, as they say, or in the notices here. But
Yeah.
drmeet.com, that's your website if people want to just dig in and read about you more. And
Yeah.
I really encourage people to avail themselves of this free gift that you're offering. It's just really wonderful. I love
Yeah,
the
there's
work
the
you're doing.
yeah, the free gift is an ebook and video courses. The
Yeah.
website is drameet .com in case anyone's wondering how to spell that. What I love about the free videos, there's a very powerful emotional healing exercise in there. It's a must watch. Like a lot of people, I mean, do it with a therapist if you have big traumas or if you don't know how to self-regulate. But it's super cool. It's super cool. It gets you comfortable with your own vulnerable emotions.
Hmm.
Yeah. I don't want to give it all away, but yeah, check it out. It's fun.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. I feel super blessed by getting to just be in this connection with you. And I'll see you on the flip side.
Likewise, Kelly. And thank you everyone for listening. I really wish you love and tenderness in your healing journey. And also be tender with yourself rather than criticizing yourself for not feeling well.
Mm,
Tenderness is really, um, yeah, tenderness is the path to self-release from pain.
super beautiful. Thank you. Blessings to all.
Um,